Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the evening's uh, interactive fertility support webinar. And tonight we're going to be discussing the emotional challenges of PCOS. And if you're coping with PCOS, you know that it can be incredibly challenging. Not only are you coping with your infertility, but there's also various metabolic challenges that you have to cope with as well, such as those wonderful symptoms like difficulty losing weight. You may have acne, you may feel slow and sluggish, you may feel a little slow and depressed. There's just a whole gamut of symptoms on top of infertility that you have to cope with PCOS. And so those added stressors and that added pressure can really make infertility with PCOS kind of its own unique creature to deal with. So tonight what I wanted to do is spend a little bit of time, about 20-30 minutes, talking about the emotional challenges of PCOS, answering any questions you may have, addressing any topics that you may have, and helping you through it. So what I'd like you to do is initially really realize that PCOS is not your fault. The issues with weight loss that you may have had, the kind of yo-yo weight, or really struggling to lose weight, struggling to maintain weight, that's not your fault. It is incredibly challenging for women who have PCOS to maintain their weight and to keep it at a nice and healthy level. It's just a lot harder for you to lose weight. It's a lot harder for you to work against those carb cravings. It's a lot harder for you to stick to a low-carb, low-sugar diet, which in turn is exactly what you need to do. So don't put so much pressure on yourself that you haven't been able to lose those 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds, whatever it is, because your body really is working against you, unfortunately. There are medications that we can help you with that we'd be more than happy to help you with, such as metformin, that will help you work towards maintaining that healthy weight. But I know that is one bit of the emotional puzzle that is very challenging for many people to cope with. So know that you're not alone and that that's not your fault. Additionally, I think sometimes it can feel burdensome to have to take on all these other lifestyle changes instead of just coming in for fertility treatments. Essentially with PCOS, you can't just come in and take the medications and be on your way. Often you have to make these lifestyle changes with diet and exercise, being more aware of what you eat, more aware of your body and the amount of exercise that you're taking in while dealing with all these other symptoms of the PCOS that really kind of pile on the stress and the worry and the responsibility that comes with coping with your fertility with PCOS. So there really is a lot to undertake here, and for some it can be very challenging. And so I'd like to just open it up to any questions that you may have, any topics specific to PCOS or your infertility that you'd like me to discuss, and be happy to help you with them tonight. But really, what I want you to do is try and just remember that when you face these challenges, such as infertility, such as your weight, such as maybe you're coping with acne, coping with hair growth in various places that we really don't want it to be. Remember that that is your PCOS. And it's not something that you're doing necessarily wrong, it's just something that we have to cope with within our bodies. Luckily, we have many treatments available to help you cope with them. And I can attest that, I've been able to completely turn my lifestyle around and my life around and my fertility as well by really focusing in on improving health and wellness and just my overall feeling of in control and feeling of, my body is reacting properly, and it really just have a wonderful response. To share a little bit, my PCOS journey, I guess, started right when I was around 16, 17. My periods were never normal, around that time. When I went to college, I just stopped getting them. That first year, they just didn't come. And it wasn't sexually active, so we knew it wasn't that. So we were really kind of puzzled. And then after my first year of college, I had always been thin and active up until then, but then I gained 30 pounds within 3 months. And so it was just, we had no idea what was happening. I really didn't change what I was eating. I was under a little bit of stress. Obviously, I was in first to second year of college. I was also transferring schools. And so I I thought maybe it was stress, but I went to the doctor and I said, I'm not changing my food, I'm not changing my exercise, but what's happening? And finally, I had an ultrasound, we figured out that it was PCOS. And so I got on metformin. Tried to work on diet and exercise, realized how really hard it is, especially in college. I went to a big football school, so it was pizza and beer all the time. So it was very hard to work on limiting carbs and starches. But I did it, and the weight slowly started to come off. It took a long time though, and then I would kind of get lazy with my diet changes, and they'd shoot right back up. And then once I got married and we decided to conceive, we used Clomid, and we were able to successfully conceive, along with metformin and progesterone and estrogen, the whole package. We carried that daughter full term, and then when she was 19 months, my periods returned and my health was wonderful. My weight is way back down to where I was, in high school, which is a healthy weight for me. Much more active, have a lot more energy. Really removed a lot of the carbs and sugars and got back on metformin, and we conceived again naturally. But then we had a miscarriage at 9 weeks, and then we were able to conceive again and carry that pregnancy to full term. But PCOS, it's still a struggle. Even though it's under control, it's still something that we have to consider all the time. When we go to conceive again, it's something that it's going to be in the back of my mind. Say, I'm just going to have to go through the medications and stay on Crenone forever, and take metformin, which always makes me sick, and you have to cope with all this in the back of your mind. But luckily, we do have great treatments available, and they don't work exactly perfectly for everybody, but a lot of people, we can really get to that point where we can get you to ovulate, we can get you to conceive, and then we can get you to hold the pregnancy. So if you have any questions, any thoughts on any of the challenges around that, you've heard my story. So there's a question up, and I'd like to go to that. Let's see. You had an allergic reaction to metformin. Are there any other meds out there that help? I would ask the nurses or one of the care providers for any other medications beyond metformin. There are forms such as Blumetza and other generic forms of metformin and the extended release, but that's something that I would definitely ask the nurses. I took metformin for my first and my third pregnancy. I was not on metformin during my second pregnancy. That ended in miscarriage. I don't know if that caused it. We will never know. But I do know that I feel better when I am on my dose of metformin. So if that's something that you're interested in, something that your physicians and your providers we have recommended for you, and you had an allergic reaction to it, maybe there's something else that we can switch in for you, or take a look at your insulin levels, take a look to see how insulin resistant you are, and maybe we can make some changes there. If you're looking for other ways to help support your insulin resistance and help work through that, I would recommend meeting with one of our registered dietitians. They can give you great nutrition suggestions so that you don't have to completely cut everything out, but you can swap out some maybe healthier choices for some of the foods that you really love and enjoy. So it's not like you don't have to have pizza ever again, but maybe you can swap it out every once in a while. And additionally, acupuncture and yoga I found very helpful. I know we say acupuncture and yoga for everything, but I did feel like it was particularly helpful trying to conceive and maintain pregnancy. Yoga was a good way for me to exercise that wasn't intimidating when I was first getting back into it, because I had been out of the gym for a long time. And so for me to go run on a treadmill when I was at a much heavier weight, it was just challenging for me because I felt like I was never going anywhere. Felt like I wasn't making any progress, and I just hated it essentially. But I found yoga to be very inviting. It worked well with my body. I really enjoyed the shape that my body started to take with it and how I felt. So that I felt was integral to me conceiving. And then acupuncture. We had one cycle with a very large cyst. My lining was very terrible, I can just say. It was just as thin as could be. We pretty much almost canceled the cycle with my daughter, and I'm happy that we didn't, because my lining was just so close to nothing. But I do think that acupuncture did help with calming down some of those larger, more dominant cysts, and also increasing blood flow to help with the lining, keeping a nice healthy lining, which is, of course, very important. So those are two things that I found to be very helpful. But if you're finding that you need to keep responding to your PCOS and keep working on it further, really kind of the path that I've chosen is to eat intuitively. I know there are certain foods that I eat them and I just feel awful for hours. And it's just, I know they don't work well with my body. I know that I'm going to regret it. I know that I'm going to be tired and sluggish and feel kind of down after I have them. Pasta is one of them. I love it. I really wish I could have it. But I know that if I have it, I'm just going to feel awful for hours after. So I've just learned to just withhold and just to not have it. And that's been working for me. That has helped me to feel emotionally much more better. I'm much more clear, not as lethargic, and not as, not as many peaks and valleys of feeling, a little more anxious or depressed. So that has definitely helped me. But that doesn't work for everyone. So try the eating intuitively if it's working for you, if you feel like you're responding to it well. And just know that that's an option for you as well. But, aside from all of the treatment options, coping with the emotional, coping with just all the symptoms of it is very challenging. And so you really need to try and go very lightly with your emotions and with the thoughts that you're having. I know that I had felt very frustrated that I wanted to conceive. I felt like this is what I was meant to do. I felt like I was ready to conceive, but my body was working against me. I felt very feminine, and that I wanted to be able to be the mom and be the shapely mom that I've always wanted to be, but at the same time my body was reacting in a way and showing me that it really wasn't acting very feminine at all. Instead, I had a higher testosterone, which is, it was a hit to my confidence, and it was a hit to my femininity and my identity in that aspect. So those are all things that I had to cope with. And if you're feeling this, similarly, if you're feeling like you're just kind of listlessly wondering what the next step is or what your role is, I'd like to remind you that your partner didn't choose you because he or she thought that you would be able to carry children. You weren't chosen because they thought you had fantastic ovaries, nice and smooth with no cysts on it. They didn't choose you because they thought, oh, she must have a wonderful uterine lining. No, you were chosen for so many other reasons beyond your fertility and beyond your potential to conceive and carry a child. You were chosen for your laugh, for your smile, for your personality, for your love that you give, for your ambition, for your patience. So don't focus as much on this as the be-all and end-all of making it or breaking it. Having a child is the most important thing to you right now, and I understand that feeling. But this isn't everything that is you. There are many things about you that your loved ones love about you. And so don't forget about that when you're feeling like you're failing at all of this because you can't get your weight under control, you can't control the PCOS, and you can't conceive. It feels like you're hitting roadblock after roadblock and just not delivering where you feel like you should. But remember that there are so many other things about you that are important and that your friends and family members do love about you. And so it's important to focus on those. Are there any questions that I can answer for anyone or any thoughts that you may have? I'd like to welcome those. I know I've been chatting for a long time, so I'll take a break from that for you. Okay. Additionally, what is very important is to really be mindful with the stress and anxiety that can happen with PCOS. That is one of the symptoms that you can find, and especially while trying to conceive and coping with infertility, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself the space for your emotions and giving yourself the space for feeling anything that you're feeling. If you're frustrated with this, if you're angry that you have to cope with this, if you're depressed that you haven't conceived yet, if you're feeling a little lost in your treatment, that's all okay. It's important to just give yourself the time to feel this emotion and then move on. If you're feeling like you're having difficulty kind of breaking that thought cycle, that's okay too. That's very normal, and it it does happen very frequently to all of us. And so what I recommend you do is I have a couple coping tools that many have found helpful, and I'd like you to try them, especially when you're really kind of stuck in that thought process of, am I going to conceive? Why haven't I conceived yet? It should come soon. So what I'd like you to do first is to think about your happiest moment. What is the happiest day that you can think of, the happiest moment? Maybe it was your proposal, when your partner proposed to you. Maybe it was, when you first met your partner. It was graduating from college. Whatever that happiest moment, that most blissful thought is, try and go there for a moment. Try and recreate it completely. Think about what you were wearing, what the other person was wearing, where you were. Was it sunny outside? Are there any distinct smells? And really place yourself in that moment of happiness. And when you're feeling these overwhelming thoughts, these repetitive thoughts of stress and anger, frustration, and you just keep replaying things over and over again, bring yourself back to that thought. Bring yourself back to that happy, blissful thought, and then you can bring your mind back to whatever activity you're doing. If you're at work or if you're out and about and you really can't stress about this too much, go to that blissful thought and then let your mind wander back to whatever the task is. And this is kind of an oscillating thought, so you're going to have to go back and forth and try it over and over again, but I find that very peaceful. My immediate image goes to when I first saw my husband, and so if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, starting to feel stressed, starting to feel anxious, or a lot of grief over the miscarriage or over our infertility, then I'll bring my thought back to that moment, and suddenly I can feel the calm, and I can feel a bit more peace. Additionally, another exercise would be for you to set the alarm on your phone. So set the alarm on your phone for 10 minutes every day, and during those 10 minutes you can run wild with the thoughts. You can run over your fertility, you can run over your PCOS symptoms, everything that's been just driving you nuts, all the grief and anger, frustration, all those thoughts that you go through. You get to do them for 10 minutes. But then once those 10 minutes are over, you have to just put those thoughts down until the next day. Get up, do something different, get something to eat, go for a walk, go exercise, do a different task at work, whatever you may be doing. But once you finish those 10 minutes of running through all of your thoughts that you need to for the day, put them down and then move on, and they'll be there for you tomorrow. You don't have to worry, they're not going anywhere. The worry about your infertility will still be there, but just try and isolate the repetitive thoughts to just 10 minutes a day, and then when the alarm goes off, put them down until tomorrow. Okay, we have a question. The question is, have you heard of any success stories with ovarian drilling? I didn't respond to Clomid and can't afford the injectables. We have had success with ovarian drilling, absolutely. Ovarian drilling, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially what you do is you go in. It sounds terrible. It isn't that bad though. So, with PCOS, you have many cysts around the outside of your ovaries. The thought is that having all these cysts there and all that pressure within the ovary is inhibiting ovulation. So what we do is we go in with a very tiny needle and we puncture as many of the cysts on the outside of the ovary that we can see and that we can get to. And the idea is that this releases a lot of the pressure, removes, deflates many of the cysts, especially the big ones. We get as many as we can. And then it helps quiet the ovaries down. And we have found that many clients have ovulated and conceived on their own after that. Ovarian drilling just kind of seemed to be that switch that was needed, that change in the equilibrium within the body and that change within the system to really kind of release the pressure, allow the body to kind of reset a little bit and ovulate on your own. So we have seen success rates with that. The question is there a decent success rate in using injectables and IUI when you have PCOS? Yes. I would recommend that you speak with one of our practitioners. You can either set up a follow-up talk or you can ask them during your next appointment or during consultation about your specific success rates and what the success rates are right now. But your success rates are higher with doing injectables and IUI than they are with Clomid, than they are with timed intercourse, than they are with just doing injectables with intercourse. So injectables with IUI are your second highest chances, highest success rates of conceiving. The next highest would be IVF. But if you're not ready to go to IVF, injectables with IUI would be your, kind of top of the line go-to with the highest success rates for the condition. This, of course, can change depending on your consult with us. You obviously have to have clear and open tubes for an IUI to work. But if you're not ready for IVF yet, injectables with IUI would be your highest success rate. Additionally, if you're overweight, which many women with PCOS are, I used to be, a decrease in your weight by 10% if you are overweight has been shown to increase your chance of conceiving as well. So trying to shed some of that extra weight that you've been carrying around a little bit, it's very challenging to do. I understand that. I definitely understand how hard it is to lose weight. But if you can decrease your weight, if you are overweight right now, try and work on that a little bit. Some women, that's enough to get them to ovulate. We have seen women who have just kind of started eating right, really listening to their bodies, exercising, taking their metformin, working on weight loss, and they lose, they lose a certain amount of weight, and suddenly they're able to ovulate and conceive on their own. That may just be what puts your body over the edge to get you ovulating on your own, get you conceiving. So you don't know how these changes are going to impact your fertility and how quickly they will. I was very surprised by how quickly mine did when I started taking the metformin and focusing, on decreasing the sugar intake and exercising a little bit more. I definitely felt more of an increase in my fertility. Still use Clomid and still needed hormonal supplements, definitely in pregnancy. My progesterone level is another one that's very low. But I did notice a benefit. So I wouldn't discount also focusing on diet and exercise while you're pursuing fertility treatments, because diet and exercise are absolutely not for everybody, and they absolutely will not make everyone conceive. And I'm not trying to minimize anyone's fertility struggles. But what I am saying is that while you're pursuing an IUI with injectables, while you're pursuing Clomid or IVF, maybe just staying a little bit more conscious about your diet and your exercise and making sure you take your metformin and your prenatals. That may help push you over the edge as well. Just giving the medications a good, healthy body, and at least the healthiest body that we can work with to help them work. So we have one question. Let's see. What can be done about the excessive hair growth on your face? Super self-conscious about it. It makes me not want to be seen in public. Same goes for skin darkening around the neck, underarms. Anything can be done to decrease side effects. Some women do notice a decrease in the hair growth side effects of PCOS with a decrease in weight and with taking the metformin. The idea is that when your insulin is under control, you won't get those more unfortunate side effects. But to work on it, what is already there, some women have found success with the laser, so laser hair removal, and some laser treatment for skin lightening may be available within our CNY Healing Arts. I'm not sure about skin lightening, if that is an option, but we do have laser hair removal, which some women do like, especially if it's been years and you have the same trouble spots. Maybe try the laser hair removal for that. But the idea is that for many women, once the insulin levels are under control, your insulin resistance is controlled, then those side effects start to decrease and start to go away, and you'll see a great improvement in them. But it's not fair to have to feel self-conscious about going out in public while you're also dealing with your infertility. So I'm very sorry that you have to deal with that and that you have that side effect. Because it really is just not fair that you have these physical side effects as well as the infertility. It's just, PCOS is just this terrible double whammy. Another question is, seem to be having harsh side effects of metformin, upset stomach, diarrhea, headaches, split dosage up in the morning and in the meals, but it's still just as bad. Metformin's tough. I found that most of the time I could only handle about 1,000 milligrams. I know that the typical dose is 2,000. what I did was, make sure you're starting out low and slowly increasing your dose. And if it's making you too sick, maybe try and speak with one of the practitioners about going down, 500 milligrams, maybe taking 750 or 500 instead of 1,000, or maybe only taking 1,000 from 200. I think it's important to make sure that you're not sick all the time, but also still getting the benefits of metformin. So I would ask the nurse at the next appointment what dose you're at and where you can safely go down to, and make sure you're adding it in slowly. Don't just start out taking 2,000 because you will absolutely get sick, but start out with 500 for a week to 2 weeks. I believe the timeline is they're saying now, and then go to 1,000, and then 15, and then 2,000. Or whatever dose you're going to, but I couldn't handle my full dose, but I did stay at 1,000, and I did still feel the benefits of it, and I feel like it was integral to me holding on to both pregnancies that were successful, but I would ask the practitioners at your next appointment if you can decrease your dose. But you're right, taking it with meals, splitting it up during the day, trying to maybe space your prenatal vitamin out too, because if there's iron in your prenatal vitamin, sometimes that upsets some stomachs. So maybe do metformin, prenatals at lunch, and then metformin at night, and then going slowly and trying to add it as slow as possible. Is there another medicine besides metformin that helps with PCOS? Not that I know of. Metformin really is our go-to, just because there have been so many studies on it. That's what we use. There's, like I said, there's glucophage, which is the name brand dose, and it's a slow release. So the traditional metformin, at least it used to be, you'll have to ask the nurses and the physicians. Traditional metformin used to be you get the big dose, and then a lot of people are having the GI side effects. But the slow release glucophage, or the Glumetza, releases slowly over the day. So when I took that, I did take Glumetza as well, and I tolerated that better. Much slower over the day, not as much of that big initial dose, and then you kind of taper off. So it releases slower, so you have fewer GI side effects, which is very beneficial. Okay. Any other questions? You guys had some great questions tonight. Okay. Well, what I'd like you to do is, if you have any questions about your medications, medication options, treatment options, go ahead and ask us during your next appointment. Make sure we answer all of your questions. Make sure you're satisfied when you leave, because this is your baby you're talking about in your body. Also, make sure that you schedule a follow-up talk or a consult with us if you are considering cycling with us, or if you have some questions and you haven't cycled for a while but maybe want to try something new and you want to know your success rates. That's an option. You can also make an appointment with our acupuncturists, and they can give you a great traditional Chinese medicine kind of script for what you should be eating, should be avoiding, how many acupuncture sessions they think may be helpful or when, and that's also a great resource for you. And don't forget that you get a free acupuncture session at the time of your IUI or IVF now, and you also get free yoga for fertility at any time. So that's something that you can go in and use as a great resource and enjoy, and it's just completely free and accessible to you at our centers. So go ahead and try the yoga for fertility. You can always email me as well or call me if you have any questions or if there's any support that I can offer you, emotional support with PCOS. I do know it is challenging, but just stick with it. Really what I've learned working here is persistence is really what pays off. It's the clients who we weren't sure if they were going to conceive, but they just kept coming back and trying new things and sticking with good healthy diet and sticking with exercise and trying to stay positive even when they really feel like there isn't anything else to stay positive about. Those are the ones who always surprise us and who give us those great success stories. So try and stick with it and be persistent. It's a long road, and it's a long road with PCOS. Like I said, it has all those added nasty side effects that you have to cope with on top of being infertile or experiencing miscarriages or what you may be experiencing. But the end result is worth it. And just stick on the road. You'll get there. And if it doesn't look like how you had imagined it would look, you've learned a lot along the way, and you've done a better job taking care of yourself and nurturing your emotions, nurturing your mind and your thoughts and your heart, and so you'll be able to cope easier with whatever happens along the way. But definitely just stay on that road and be very patient with your thoughts. Don't get angry with yourself about weight loss or any of the hair growth or the acne or the depression. When you start to get those thoughts about feeling negative about that, just remind yourself it's the PCOS. It really is out of my control. I can work hard, but I can't control it. And try and remember that. And be patient with any stress or anxiety that you're feeling. And give yourself plenty of time to rest and relax. And always ask your questions. Don't leave the office without feeling like you know exactly what you're doing or that you feel like you're getting the best treatment. Because like I said before, this is your fertility and it's your baby. But thank you very much for attending the webinar. If there aren't any other questions, we will end. And you can always email me or call me if you have any other follow-up questions. I'll post this video on the site so you can reference it. But this was a great quick chat on PCOS, and please let me know if there's anything I can do for you. I hope you have a great night.